Among important world's news today, Europe still isn't freezing, despite what Putin said. Ukraine gets new commander-in-chief. Elon Musk doesn't believe in Ukraine anymore. Belarusian doctors are on a mission to save the world, or world's teeth. Russian military steals a Russian citizen in Armenia. Turkish and Chinese banks have sanctions placed upon Russia, held transactions with Russia whatsoever. And the biggest news of the week is it seems that Russia is getting set to annex more land, Transnistria this time. Welcome to another World's News as Seen from Russia update. Howdy friends, my name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Every Wednesday, I give you a Russian take on important news. And let's jump straight to number one. And the first news of this past week comes from Europe. Oh boy, Europe. You know, Europe has been making news for quite some time now. For the last 3,500 years at least. This time, it's Europe again and it's making news. Natural gas prices in Europe fell by 60% during 2023 and by another 12% in early 2024. What? Not too long ago, we all remember that. It's on record. Putin said that Europe will pay extraordinary prices after abandoning gas from Russian Federation. Oh boy. Medvedev added that natural gas prices in Europe will rise by 10 times at least, and Gazprom's director Miller said the whole cities in Europe will freeze. And what's now? The news are coming in. The Europeans are still alive. They still have plenty of food. The European cities aren't frozen. And the natural gas prices are low. That's quite some news. But wait. 3 incompetent liars are running Russia. That's not news. Hardly news for us. The next news comes from Ukraine. It happened a couple weeks ago, but it's important news to inform you. So, here you have it. Alexander Syrsky was appointed the new commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine. The Ukrainian president Vladimir Zelensky appointed Alexander Syrsky as the new commander-in-chief. 58-year-old General Syrsky initially refused the offer, but later agreed to lead the armed forces. Syrsky led the defense of Kiev in the first months of the war and then organized successful counteroffensive in the northeast of Kharkov region province in the fall of 2022. Alexander Syrsky, now that's where it gets interesting. Alexander Syrsky was born in the village of Novosti, Vladimir province of Russia, but he has been living in Ukraine since 1980. Alexander Syrsky graduated from, now where it gets interesting, Moscow Higher Combined Arms Command School. He began his service in 1986 as a commander of a motorized rifle platoon. And now he is leading the defense of the country that Moscow has invaded. Am I the only one who's seen something very odd with this picture? Anyone? In Ukraine, where Vladimir Putin claims there are Nazis and Russophobia is flourishing, the Jewish president appointed an ethnic Russian as commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So much for Nazism and Russophobia in Ukraine. Well, Russian propaganda, of course, has been silent, as if this news does not exist. And another news is coming from the other side of the pond, from America. Elon Musk made a statement recently. He said that Russia in no case can lose the war in Ukraine. These expenses, well, he meant the expenses that the United States is trying to send to Ukraine, all that money in the arms. These expenses will not help Ukraine. Prolonging the conflict will not help Ukraine, he said. You know, at first I didn't believe he said that. Impossible, I thought. But I fact-checked and voila, he really said that. This spending does not help Ukraine. Prolonging the war does not help Ukraine. There's no way in hell Putin could lose in Ukraine, he said to an American news agency, Bloomberg. You know, I used to admire Elon Musk for his innovations, thinking out of the box, boldness, risk-taking, and many other things. But I don't anymore. Well, let's move to the next news. Positive news are coming from Belarus. Belarusian doctors will save the world soon. Again. Well, when did they save for the first time? I don't really know, but it sounded good. Again. We at least are aiming to save the world's teeth, they say. Caries, in other words, tooth decay vaccine is being developed in Belarus. The Minister of Health said that they really want to invent a drug that would prevent the proliferation of microorganisms that cause tooth decay. The project was launched in early January, and it's not specified when, even remotely, even approximately, when this miracle remedy will be ready. But I have an idea, and I'll just tell you in a second. Well, that's good news for Belarus, because recently they had a huge blow to the country's scientific research. About 7 weeks ago, country's President Alexander Lukashenko ordered to halt country's big, long-running space program. Yes, Belarus had a space program. You know, the whole thing, turnkey, to design, build space rocket, to send it in space, to train lots of cosmonauts, have spacewalks, perhaps the moon, the whole 9 yards. Must have been the space program as powerful as Russia's moon landing program, at least as powerful as, well, at least as expensive, I would say. But now it's been stopped. Instead, the country's space program, Lukashenko decided to build a large potato storage warehouse. Well, not that large. Well, large, okay. Well, it's officially called the High-End Technological Storage Facility. And advanced it'll be. The facility will be painted on the outside, have an automatic remote control doors, that's no joke, my friends, and gates, remotely controlled gates. And get this, it'll be air conditioned, well, at least partially. So no more space program, but tooth decay vaccine instead. Not too bad. That's don't you worry. This miracle caries vaccine is being researched by all medical scientists, by entire scientific community of Belarus. All countries' resources are being poured into this program. I mean, they have lots of free money after ending their space program. At least they must be. And the vaccine will be ready soon. Well, at least no later than 2097. And the next news, one of the not so great news, comes from Armenia. Yeah, Armenia, the country east of Russia. Russian law enforcement agencies tracked down, using the entire complex of internal surveillance. Miracle carries. They tracked down a guy who was, well, in Armenia, due to his political views and a loud voice. So they tracked him down and stole him right from the territory of Armenia, using Russian border guards, border patrol that is present in Armenia. They're presented at the passport control at Yerevan airport. Russian military police abducted Dmitry Sedrakov, Russian citizen of Armenian origin, from Armenia. He fled Russia, They took him to the Russian military base and transported to Russia in secrecy. God, please help him now. Russia propaganda was happy, hailing it as Russia's victory. In reality, folks, it's arbitrariness and another spit in the face of international law from the side of Russia. Many of us who have fled Russia are feeling that the clouds are thickening above us. Next news comes from Turkey, and this news is pretty scary. Sad, not too scary, I would say it's sad. Back in 2022, Turkey was among the top countries where Russians were fleeing to from the war and from the KGB. It was a very friendly towards us, the Russians. I remember considering Turkey as a refuge for myself, thinking, well, perhaps, this could be a place for me to go to and bring my family and the whole 9 yards. Thank God I didn't go there. Because now Russians are leaving Turkey, en masse due to high housing prices and stricter checks for obtaining tourist residence permits. In addition, the country has raised the minimum threshold for the cost of real estate to buy for obtaining a residence permit. You see, you had to buy a certain, spend a certain amount to buy real estate in Turkey to get first residency, then citizenship. In January alone, 54,000 Russians left Turkey, and this exodus from Turkey is continuing. So much for Turkey being friendly to us. And the next news also comes from Turkey. Just check this out. There was a collapse at a gold mine in Turkey. This accident occurred in Erzincan province. I think it's in the east of Turkey. Rumors have it that 10 miners are missing. Look at the size of this collapse. Absolutely devastating. You never know when it's gonna hit you, And not only it happens because of political reasons. Mother Nature speaks its word sometimes as well. The next news comes from Thailand. In 2023, Russians bought half of the villas available for sale and a quarter of all apartments in the province of Phuket, which is a fantastic place. In terms of purchasing activity, in Thailand in 2023, Russians ranked second after the Chinese. You see, Thailand is another destination for Russians to move from Russia. It's absolutely beautiful. Thailand is one of the prettiest places I've ever been. And we'll be watching closely for when Thailand starts pushing the Russians out, just like Turkey has started. It's not easy to be peaceful war opposing Russian these days. It seems like only those Russians who support the aggression in the war are welcomed everywhere, and those who oppose don't even come close. The next news smells like pizza and pasta because it comes from Italy. An Italian woman earned 111,000 euro by inventing 5 children. She submitted fake pregnancy certificates and 5 fake birth certificates to Italian authorities in order to receive maternity payments and child benefits. The fraud was discovered 6 years later when it was time for one of the kids, the eldest child, so to speak, to go to school. Now the mother is being tried for fraud. And I'm telling you this for one reason. This news made splashes in Russian propaganda. They started pushing this news quite a bit. They translated it and it was all over. You see, crimes happen every day, everywhere. There are crooks everywhere, no matter where you live, no matter what country you're in. But what Russian propaganda does, it finds a case like this. That is a dime a dozen in any country, and it doesn't matter what country it is, the USA, the Norway, the Italy, Poland, Thailand, Turkey, Brazil. There are good people everywhere and there are crooks everywhere. But there are so many more good people than crooks. But Russian propaganda finds crooks and totally blows their cases out of proportion, saying, you see, this rotten West, they're all like that. It's all over the collective West. The Satanists, the crooks, they're no good bums. And you know what? The Russians mostly believe it. It almost seems like the Russians want to be fooled and brainwashed. Ooh, at this point I'd like to take a sip of this wonderful English breakfast tea and ask you to help me out. First, like this live stream, please. Second, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Not only subscribe, but please press the ring button and subscribe to all notifications. Number 3, please spread this message in your social media accounts. That helps a lot. But the best way to help the channel is to comment. Please let me know what you think. What news you like the most? Perhaps you disagree with me or something. Please let me know down below in the comments. Also, you can always buy me a coffee or a tea at buymecoffee.com or become a channel's patron at patreon.com. Never required, but always greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. The next news comes from Russia's best friends and allies and partners and, I don't know, you name it, Turkey and China. Russian businessmen started having troubles with Turkish and Chinese banks in early 2024. Well, I already covered this news a few weeks ago, but this time I'd like to give you an update. And this situation it's breaking news, so to speak. In a nutshell, it's how secondary sanctions, international sanctions on Russia work. Those who help Russians to circumvent the sanctions, they get punished. Now, this is the latest update on what's happening in Turkey. Secondary sanctions have begun to take effect. Since January 1st, most Turkish banks have started closing accounts for Russian companies. And currently, there's close to none money transferring between Russia and Turkey is happening. In particular, oil exporters from Russia have not received payments from Turkey for the oil already supplied. This country is the third largest buyer of Russian oil after China and India. Turkey is one of the largest buyers of Russian wheat energy resources. In addition, it's one of the largest importers of vegetable and fruits to our country. Well, they export and Russia imports. Now, future of entire trade between Russia and Turkey is uncertain, up in the air, for one simple reason. Turkish banks don't want to do anything with Russians anymore. Well, the sad thing about this situation is I'm waiting when the sanctions will be placed not just upon Turkish companies, but not upon Russian companies, but Russian people as well. No wonder they live in Turkey in mass. But that's not it. Let's talk about the Chinese banks now. Country's three largest banks, called Industrial Commercial Bank of China, ICBC, China Construction Bank, CCB, and Bank of China, have stopped accepting payments from Russian sub-sanctioned financial institutions. According to media reports, payments in yuan stopped a few days before the Chinese New Year, not too long ago. Bank employees are advising to cancel payments, otherwise the money might be, perhaps will be frozen. You see, US-China trade balance significantly exceeds the same indicator between Russia and China. I don't know, by tens, hundreds of times perhaps. And therefore, banks and state corporations in China refuse risky operations. It's not simply worth for them to work with Russian companies if that puts them onto a threat of getting sanctioned by the Americans. Okay, it's not worth it. Let me translate this news from the newspeak to plain English language. It's bad, very bad for Russia. Real financial isolation starts looming above the country. I still remember the times 2 years ago when Russian politicians, days after the invasion of Ukraine began, they came out and said, well, look, there's nothing to fear if they dare to place the sanctions. They would never do that, but if they do, then we will team up with the Chinese and we'll crush them, China and Russia. Well, 2 years later, I'm laughing. About 18 months ago, I made a stream called Secondary Sanctions Will Kill Russia. To me, it was obvious that this is what's going to follow. Well, now, 18 months later, the secondary sanctions are killing Russia. Folks, I simply knew. And the last news of today is very, very disturbing. Russia is planning to do something bad with Transnistria and Moldova. Now, where is Moldova and what is Transnistria? Transnistria, or Pridnestrovia, officially known as the Pridnestrovian Moldovan Republic, is an internationally unrecognized state recognized as part of Moldova. Transnistria controls most of the narrow strip of land between the Dniester River and the Moldova-Ukraine border, so it's located west of Ukraine. Its capital and largest city is Tiraspol. Transnistria has been recognized only by two other unrecognized or partially recognized breakaway states, Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Transnistria is officially designated by the Republic of Moldova as the administrative territorial unit on the left bank of the Dniester River. In March 2022, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution that defines the territory of Transnistria as under military occupation by Russia. You also need to know that now there are 65 or so Russian soldiers stationed in Transnistria. In June 2018, the United Nations made a joint resolution calling Russia to move its military base from Transnistria. But the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs basically told the UN to shove it. Moreover, recently Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov publicly stated that current Moldovan leadership is not independent. It is another geopolitical project of the United States and the European Union. You know, I've heard this music before. The very same Lavrov was saying the very same about Moldova's eastern neighbor, Ukraine. And that was happening 2 years ago, 24 months to the date. And we all know what followed. We all know what happened. The Transnistria conflict has been going on since 1991. So why it's so disturbing now? Why I put this as the title for the thumbnail for the stream? What's changed? Well, the scary old music started playing. That's what's changed. That's why it's disturbing. I am not feeling well about this whole thing. You see, the participants of the Congress of Deputies of Transnistria appeared in Tiraspol, the capital city, and they got together and they appealed to Russia to help in connection with the increased pressure from Moldova. And it happened 2 days ago. They appealed 2 days ago. The deputies adopted a resolution which contains an appeal to both chambers of Russian parliament with a request to implement measures to protect Transnistria, taking into account the fact of permanent residence of the Republic of more than 220,000 Russian citizens, and the unique positive experience of Russian peacekeeping in Transnistria. You see, how those 220,000 Russian citizens ended up in Transnistria? Well, it's very simple. Over the years, Russia was giving Russian passports, Russian citizenship to anyone who wanted to have it in Transnistria. That's why they gained 220,000 Russians. Most of them have Moldovan passport and the Russian passport. Ah, boy, we've heard that before. Many Russians live here. Please come and protect us because Russians are being pressured by the locals. So Russia needs to come in and start protecting the Russians. Please bring Russian world to us and we'll join you. Disregard that we're part of a larger country, a different country. We don't care. We just want to be part of Russia. We want the Russian world to be brought to us. Needless to say that most deputies, if not all, are Russian-controlled puppets. And it's pretty obvious that they're just talking heads translating Moscow's message. What even scarier is that tomorrow, February 29th, unusual date, right? Vladimir Putin will address the Federal Assembly, Russian Federal Assembly, where he will announce the goals for Russia for the next 6 years. And at least as he sees such goals, not me, not us, the Russians, his goals for Russia. His address is going to be broadcasted at an epic scale. Check this out. I kid you not, it's gonna be, propaganda says that his speech will even be projected onto many buildings in Russia, just like this. I've never heard, or I've never seen anything like that before, but we shall see. At first I thought that Putin's address will be part of his election farce, I can't say race, But after hearing the news from Transnistria about those deputies appealing to Russian government, I've started smelling the stink of further annexations. Ooh, we will see tomorrow, as I plan on doing a live stream during Putin's speech. It starts at noon Moscow time, and I'll have an announcement. So please tune in and let's pray for peace, not for more war. And that's it for today's news update. I suggest now you check out another video I made documenting how I was leaving Russia forever, right here.